All right, welcome back to Keepin' the Comic, and we're jumping back into Ultimate Black Panther here with issue number 13. And it's here where we begin to finally see in person what Vibranium has been hiding inside of it. And then we get to see what it unleashes on Wakanda. Now, as a quick recap here, this picks up from the aftermath of the battle between Black Panther and Moon Knight / Khonshu from the last issue. Now, the Black Panther won fairly easily. And during that fight, he was seeing visions of people urging him to finish the fight and kill Khonshu. But before he could do so, Inan, the Sorcerer Supreme, arrived because Eric Killmonger and Storm had gone off to free her from captivity at a base monitored by the Hand, an operation that the Maker put together under director of Hand, Nick Fury himself. Now, this is just a short recap here. If you do want more specifics, I will leave a link to the relevant videos and playlists down below in the description, so you can definitely check those out. Now, initially here, where this starts off is that we see both Khonshu and Ra in a Wakandan prison. Next, we hear the Black Panther talking to Inan, the current Ultimate Universe, Doctor Strange, and Sorcerer Supreme. And he asks a question. He's like, okay, so you're a magician. And then she responds by saying, yeah, kind of in simple words, but meaning that there's a lot of different layers to it. Now, the Black Panther mentions how Eric Killmonger told him that she's impressive, and how Eric is not a man who is easily impressed or impressed by much. Now, Inan lets him know that she's been freed to help him, so she's here to offer her assistance. But you can tell that Black Panther is very tense because he says that Wakanda is currently swirling and how he has no time for pretense, especially since he has men who think that they are gods imprisoned in his kingdom. What he really needs is honesty and clarity, and he wants to know if Inan can provide that. Now, what Inan tells the Black Panther here is that their world is science and technology, and how her world, being the Sorcerer Supreme, is myth and rumor, challenging the basic understanding of what is possible, and how she can tell him what she knows about Vibranium, even if it is bad news, but she wants transparency in return. She says that she can help only if he is open, and how she needs honesty too. Then she throws what looks like a piece of Vibranium at him here, and she says, catch it to T'Challa. And then she goes on to ask him, she's like, you've been having dreams, aren't you? And then she continues, she's like, seeing things, dreams like memories of moments that you haven't lived, images of things you can't understand, seeing phantoms, hearing voices, compelled to act in ways that they urge. So the Black Panther responds that yes, he does have those dreams. And then she asks, she's like, what do you fear? And then he answers, he's like, yo, I'm feared that I'm losing my mind. So she tells him, she's like, well, you're not yet, but if my theory is correct, you have a kingdom that is interwoven with the ghost of a very dangerous past. So then T'Challa's like, ghost? Like, what are you talking about, right? So she asks a question, she's like, Vibranium is built into all of Wakanda? And then he confirms yes, and how it's been that way for generations, harnessing its power. And Wakanda itself is basically Vibranium. So that concerns Inan, and she asks if Black Panther knows why Ra and Khonshu were able to harness Vibranium's power, awaken the earth around them, and then able to build a temple pretending to be gods. So then T'Challa says no, but that after the duel between him and Khonshu, that they laid claim to Moon Knight's fortress and began to look for answers, but they found nothing. So Inan responds back kind of snarkily in a way. She's like, I hear that you're a genius, perhaps more than that, but you live in a world of reason and causality, which is a very narrow view of existence, and how narrow views miss what exists around them. And then she kind of calls him out a little bit here. She's like, you have a hypothesis, but you don't want to share it. So then she reminds him about earlier, their talk about transparency, how she can help, but they have to be able to trust each other. And if they can't, then she might as well just leave. So finally, the Black Panther confesses. He's like, I think Vibranium is alive. It has a consciousness and a will. And then he adds, he's like, and I think I'm losing my mind to it. So then Inan responds that she's like, honestly, I love it. And you're not entirely entirely wrong, but she says that she has short patience with doubt and that his entire kingdom is at risk, built on something they don't understand, and how she herself doesn't even fully understand it yet. But then she levitates an object in the air and says how objects can remember, and the most powerful ones can even capture the consciousness of people. And then she gives the example, if you've ever walked into a room of a dead person and you felt them still there, and how she's basically explaining it's the same concept, and how Vibranium remembers, and what she's about to show T'Challa is what those memories are. And when she does, there's this light that emits from the room, and it begins to scream like, "Ee!" And then T'Challa asks, she's like, what is that? And then she responds back kind of like in a comical way, to me at least. She was like, well, I may have leapt before I looked. But before we could continue to see what's happening there, we shift over to Killmonger and Storm, who are currently in bed. Now, Storm wants to leave, and Killmonger's like, yo, again with this? But Storm is telling him, she's like, how she kind of feels that there's this dread that is coming, and she's not wrong. And how when they were on their own, they were freed, how they were able to roam around to bring justice to where it was needed. And now she feels uncomfortable because they're not people that make roots. She thinks that Wakanda's soil is also toxic, and how staying there is ultimately just going to end badly for them. Now, Killmonger replies that he doesn't trust T'Challa either, but he trusts his purpose. And though he's naive because, you know, dude was born with power, but how he sees that Wakanda has a purpose. And how Storm then asks the question, she's like, well, what exactly is that purpose? So Killmonger says, he's like, it's not a home, it's a foundation. We can push them to share their power and protection with all of Africa, and how Wakanda can be a continent, not just a kingdom hiding behind its walls, and how Moon Knight showed T'Challa that, and how he will listen to us, meaning, you know, him and Storm. So then Killmonger asks Storm, he's like, well, what do you want most in this world? And then Storm responds, she's like, to protect those who cannot protect themselves. So then Killmonger says, here we have a kingdom. Alone, we're just two people, but we can make these people better than they think that they are. And he says how he has a vision, but just then in that moment, Storm looks out and she sees the same light being emitted from where Black Panther and Inan were. And then when we return to Black Panther and Inan, we see where there's a beast that has appeared from the stone, and Inan shouts, she's like, T'Challa, it's alive, and then it's going to destroy him. So T'Challa summons his suit, and we get a good look at this beast, and it's hard to kind of pinpoint who this reminds me of, but it begins to scream in a language that we cannot decipher, and it charges at T'Challa, and he manages to evade and then kick it in the face, landing some more hits, another one that knocks the beast into a wall. Then T'Challa goes over here to Inan, and he's like, yo, what is this thing? And then she replies, it's like, it's a consciousness of Vibranium. So naturally, T'Challa's like, what? Like, what the hell are you talking about? But before they can process more, the beast lunges at them. So T'Challa, he shoves the Sorcerer Supreme away, and the beast knocks him out of the window, and then lands like a solid ass kick to T'Challa at the same time too, that sends him flying through the air. And you can see like blood spattering from his mouth as well. And then the beast descends to the ground. But Storm, having seen the light, arrives just in time here to be able to catch T'Challa. She reminds him, she's like, listen, you may be the king, but remember that you cannot fly. And it gets stranger here because the beast once again starts speaking something that we cannot decipher again. And there's this light that is emitting from its eyes, and Storm is asking the question. She's like, yo, what is that? So then T'Challa says, you'll have to ask the Sorcerer Supreme. So then Storm decides, she's like, all right, I'm just gonna ask this dude myself. And then she goes on the attack. So she hits it with basically what looks like a thunderclap, but it's really actually a lightning clap, but you get my point, right? And then she knocked him back. However, the beast then opens its mouth again and then starts to scream, and this time it starts to cause all these explosions here around Wakanda. So you can see here like some of the Wakandan citizens, they're taking on these energy blasts, and these blasts overall like dead on. So there's definitely gonna be injuries and most likely some casualties here. And the more it screams, the more explosions go off around the city of Wakanda here, to So then Black Panther charges in to stop it, and Storm continues to electrocute it. And then the Sorcerer Supreme is like, all right, enough of this. Send him to me now. So then T'Challa fires what looks like an energy blast. It's kind of unclear specifically what he's doing, and then throws the beast over to the Sorcerer Supreme. And when she grabs hold of it, the beast then disappears. So T'Challa asks, she's like, yo, where did you send it? And then she says, well, I sent it to space, deep space. So then T'Challa radios over to Shuri. He's like, listen, rally the Dora Milaje and the Voodoo Khan. Tell them to tend to the injuries and then also to put out the fires, etc. And then Storm is like, I'll handle the fires myself. But then T'Challa turns over to Inan again saying that, or asks the question, I should say, that thing lives inside of Vibranium. And then she replies back, it's like, its consciousness does. I gave it form and it got out of hand. Your kingdom is filled with Vibranium. This is beyond my ability, but not beyond my knowledge. And then here is the kicker. She then says, Wakanda needs an exorcism. So can you imagine all of these things can now pop up all over Wakanda since Vibranium is all interwoven into Wakanda itself, and they all now need to be exorcised. Also, how do these beasts end up into Vibranium in the first place? My theory is that it could be the enemies of Vibranium's past, like victims of Vibranium in a sense, or it could be that those who created Vibranium before it touched Goddess Boss hands, that maybe it's the spirit of them. I want to hear your theories down below, so leave it in the comments. Shoot, even join our Discord there to further the conversation there as well. The link will also be down below in the description. Leave a like on this video here for the algorithm. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Also, if you would like to support the channel as well as get additional perks like having a hand in selecting what content we cover, access to giveaways, exclusive access within our Discord, and also being able to participate live on stream with us for future streams, then you should definitely consider joining our Patreon membership. All links will be down below in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, thank you for kicking it with Keepin' It Comic. Bye!